Oregon's athletic department. The walls of the second-floor trophy room here remember Oregon's brightest stars and pioneers. Duck legends like Mel Renfro, Bobby Moore, and Achilles Smith stand out on these walls. While these men have earned their place among Oregon's elite, their images significantly overshadow the two men that paved the way for them. Tucked in the corner behind the walls of fame rests a simple collage commemorating two brave men. In the fall of 1926, Charles Williams and Robert Robinson accomplished what many in the state thought was impossible when they enrolled as scholarship student athletes at the University of Oregon.
Robinson went exclusively to Jefferson High School, where he was very popular. I mean, he was a multi-sport athlete, a good student. They don't have football players like him anymore. Robinson played quarterback, he played receiver, he played offensive halfback, he played defensive halfback, he kicked and punted and returned kickoffs and punts. He did a lot of positions that really African Americans didn't get into in terms of sports until the 70s, in terms of especially the quarterback position. Williams was more like today. He played mainly fullback and halfback, and he did play defensive back.
The two eventually found comfort in each other as well as on the football field. However, racism made its way into their sanctuary.
Senior year, all the PIL coaches, the Portland Scholastic League coaches, sit down and vote on the All-Star team. And they decided that they could only have one black on the team. They decided to select Williams rather than Robinson. It was almost unbelievable that they were actually here at the University of Oregon in the 1920s, considering the social and racial climate of the state at that time. Charles Williams originally wanted to play in Kansas, but they informed him that they wouldn't accept an African-American athlete.
Shortly before Robinson and Williams arrived at UO, C.A. Shy Huntington, a Ku Klux Klan member, lost his job as the Ducks' head football coach. Then the university began to stray from more conservative views, such as the University of Kansas had shown, and hired Catholic football coach Captain John McEwen.
The Ku Klux Klan was not only an anti-black organization, but it was also an anti-Catholic organization.
The president of the university at that time had received a letter from the Ku Klux Klan in Medford telling him that there are other football coaches, why'd you hire a Catholic? And Arnold Dennett Hall wrote back and said that he had hired a football coach, not a religion.
Even though McEwen vigorously recruited Williams and Robinson, they wound up going to the University of Oregon only because of a twist of fate.
They missed the recruiter from Oregon State when he came to pick them up. But they chose Eugene partially because of an accident, but the coach McEwen and Bill Hayward, you know, the gentleman that Hayward Field is named after, these guys seem to be much more open to having African Americans. There were a lot of football fans down here who didn't want Robinson and Williams, although there were several African Americans here before them. They didn't do anything really public. Whereas Robinson and Williams were really on the public stage. They appeared in the school paper, they appeared in the Oregonian, they played football in front of thousands of fans.
Despite a generally receptive response to the recruitment of two African American athletes, the university remained hesitant to fully integrate the campus.
Oregon state law allowed for cities to actually segregate schools.
The first year they were prohibited from living in dorms because they were African American. They had to live in town in a private residence with a German gentleman, I believe he was a shoemaker. A young man, he's from the South. He was a Texan. And he first had some problems with being on the same team as Robinson and Williams. But one time he ended up, after doing his freshman year with them, he went out to dinner with them and told them that they had really taught him that people were really basically the same.
The football team petitioned that they should be able to live in the dormitory with the rest of the team members. And so the university allowed them to move into the dormitory, which was then Friendly Hall.
We had a weird arrangement. They built a separate apartment for Robinson and Williams. The school went through extra expense and built them a separate entrance. Their freshman year, they started all the time. Opening up their sophomore year, they started most of the time. Then it turns out a lot of boosters and people in the community did not like seeing two African Americans in the starting lineup, and the coach finally had to make a compromise. He wouldn't start both of them here at home, here in Eugene or in Portland, but on the road he would turn around and start them both because he wouldn't have to hear all the jeering and yelling that would be coming from the stands. And a lot of times these young men suffered a lot of racial slurs. Sometimes they would have things thrown at them from the stands. Sometimes the referees were clearly biased against them. Robinson used to be derided a great deal because after some of his tremendous runs that he would make, he would fall down and be out of breath. And a lot of the fans would jeer him because they thought he was showboating or that he had some other problem. The trainers here thought he had a stomach problem. And Williams would always run over to him and trying to get him up from the ground because the people were booing so much. Their senior year was really just a tragic thing to have happen to a young athlete. They were going to play University of Florida, in Florida. You know, Florida was segregated at that time. And the University of Florida wrote the U of O and told them that they understood they had two African-American athletes on the team and told them that if they brought them back there to play, they wouldn't play for Oregon. So the coaches had to call Robinson and Williams in and tell them that the last game of their senior year, they would not be able to play.
After their scholarships expired, the Great Depression forced them to leave Eugene and pursue a life outside the university. Charles Williams moved back to Portland, where he and his wife, Anna, would raise their two children. He remained there, where he worked for the state for 31 years. Williams died in 1977. Robert Robinson returned to Eugene in 1935 to receive his degree. He ended up going to Los Angeles afterward, and there he became deeply involved in politics and community development, particularly in the African-American community. Robinson died in 1954 of a heart attack. And those long runs, when he collapsed, turns out he was not showboating, but suffering from his ailing heart.
Next time on Austin's